They're raising a population of people who can't think critically. And I think that suits them.
Yep.
And now we see how much difficulty people have navigating information online and all this talk of fake news and all this kind of stuff, because that skill, the skill of critical reading, is essential to being a citizen in a democracy.
I remember once in Bangkok, I went to a club a long time ago, and we met a group of guys, and one of them was from Israel. He was, I think, interested in me, and he asked me, we started talking and things like that, offered me a drink, and then he asked me, okay, where are you from? I said Iran. He gradually disappeared into darkness.
Really?
Yeah. So these things you feel like, I understand. Maybe he thought, like, am I judge him? Am I kill him? I don't know what he thought.
I think he was just shy. No. I don't think he will give up on you for politicalism.
I understand. Like old propaganda. I understand it. So I don't get offended at all. But I just prefer not to answer that question.
Yeah, no, I totally relate to that. I think there is so much more that it's part of us than the place where we were born.
English people are different from most Europeans, I think, in that most European intellectuals, I think, want to live in cities. I mean, they certainly do in Portugal. And in England, it's not like that. You know, everybody wants to get out of the city and live in the country. Everyone wants to be a country gentleman. And you can probably see I'm wearing a tweed jacket. This is the traditional dress of the English gentleman, although it's made in Scotland.
But it suits you. It suits you very well.
Thank you.
That day, the young woman I spoke about earlier, who's a friend of my daughter, young woman from that image of the Jeep being dragged by her hair and was obviously raped and now being held hostage. She was one of what we call a peacenik. She spent every weekend with Jews and Palestinians together. She would go on the summer to these camps of Jewish and Arab children together. I worked for one of the hospitals a few years ago. I worked with a hospital in Haifa. They would treat children from Gaza in the hospitals because because of intermarriage in the Arab society, there's a huge problem with kidneys. And so they would be treated, and the experts in the world are in this hospital in Haifa. So we would treat the Gazan children in Haifa, but how do they get from Gaza to Haifa? It's like 3-hour drive. Families in the kibbutzim around Gaza would meet them and drive them back and forth, wait with them the whole day, drive the families, drive the children to their treatment, and then go back to.
When you curse in Spanish, even if you curse in, Italian, French, you have understanding of Portuguese, Spanish is unbeatable when it comes to cursing. Yeah. They are the alpha country, talking about alpha countries. They are the alpha country of cursing.
I never thought of it like that, but yes, I know there's more happening in Spanish and cursing, especially the Caribbean Spanish is a whole other monster. It's a lot like Southern Spain, but and then Italian, you have just like 1 or 2, 3 words that is used for the same Spanish. Yeah. That's the hardiest form of cursing.
London now, you either need to be 19, full of youthful vigor, and you don't mind sleeping on people's floors and so on, or rich. I don't know for sure what the population of London was in the 1970s, and I don't think anyone really knows what the population of London is now. What I can tell you is, having lived there most of my life, is that there are at least 3, if not 4 times more people in London than there were in the 1970s. There's just so many people, and the infrastructure cannot cope.
If I'm sitting on a bus or on a train and it's getting more and more crowded, there's a seat next to me that's open and nobody's sitting down in it. They'll choose to stand in the aisle rather than sit down next to me. And my first reaction is like, oh, they don't want to sit next to the foreigner. But that's not necessarily the case. I think sometimes they're being polite and giving me that extra space. And if they were to sit down next to me, that they would be inconveniencing me. Or if I need to get up and leave the bus, they wouldn't be obstructing me by sitting in the seat next to me. But maybe it's true that they're just shy, that they think that I might start speaking to them in English, and they're just not prepared to do that.
Thousands of Gazans were allowed to come into Israel every day and work. And many of them were grateful for it. But in order to be able to come to Israel and work, they had to get not only permission from Israel, get the security check, but they also had to get permission from the Hamas. They had to pay from the money that they were paid. They had to pay the Hamas a chunk of it to let them come in. They had to pay the people that were driving them to the border and from the border. And yet it was worth their while to come into Israel and work. So where were all those thousands of Gazans who were able to feed their families? Where does all this ruthlessness come from?
You are the best team in the world. Like you have more titles than anyone else. It's like team number one. It's like in Europe, Real Madrid, like it or not, is team number one. But now it's just going down.
I think they don't grow up with that problem. It's like to be a Brazilian, to defend our flag. Ronaldo and Romario, like they used to play more in Brazil than in Europe. But nowadays, like they play at the age of 16, 17 years old. They go to Europe to play there. So they don't grow like with that feeling, like to defend and to be proud to be Brazilian, and the importance of the yellow shirt.
The big reason why the Irish accent is so appealing to everyone, you see it, you live here. We suffer from a condition called the big Irish head. So our Irish heads are quite big and, as you can see, bumpy. We're not the most attractive of species, but we have an accent that could melt chocolate. Like it's very smooth. We could run those phone lines that only adults ring with this.
I find it distinctly uninteresting when for an English or an Italian team it's dominated by people. Sometimes they don't even have people from their own countries, so that's ruined it for me to a great extent.
Yeah. Not only football, I'd say. I think it's ruining society as such. Huh?
Yes, it is. It's a metaphor in a way for what's going on.
Have you ever met Roy Keane?
No. I would love to.
He is exactly like that. We were in Cove Ramblers one night, and Cove Ramblers is part of Roy Keane, and Roy Keane is part of Cove Ramblers. Then that will be forever. And he was there one night in the tunnel, talking with people, and then the kids, one of the mascot kids, just came along and asked for an autograph, and he just turned around and said, "What for?" Go away. And then the kid just went away.
The left, my left, has lost their morality because they became absolutely unkind.
Yes.
In the name of kindness, in the name of defending minorities, they are unkind. They're bullies, and it's
100%.
With Trump, we had peace in the Middle East. Trump moved the embassy to Jerusalem. He's done so much more for the Jewish people than the Biden administration did. He's done so much more for the Jewish people than the Obama administration ever did. And so I definitely think that that the Jewish community has a lot more to hope for with another Trump administration than they would have had with.
The majority of thoughts just goes unnoticed. And to learn to notice your thoughts better, there is no better way than writing.
I was just scrolling, and all of a sudden I saw a couple of Palestinian flags in a house ad. And some people might think, oh, it was an accident. It wasn't. 2 out of 7 photos have the Palestinian flag, and maybe they thought that will help selling it, which is, it's nonsense. Like most people are interested in if the walls are okay, if the neighborhood is safe. if the place is pretty and it's suitable for their needs. Why do you care if there was a Palestinian flag before? Even myself as Zionist, I wouldn't buy a place if there was an Israeli flag before. No, it's not about that.
Palestinian cause became such a tokenized item, and that no rules that we apply for any other minority groups or any other war situations apply to this. Every rule, let it be legal or PR or personal opinion, we just change them because it's the Palestinians. They can't do wrong. They are all good. They are all innocent. And I'm like, something is really, really twisted in this picture.
We've heard this before, Victor, by the very famous Michael Jackson song, Man in the Mirror. If you want to make the world a better place, you have to look at yourself in the mirror and make that change. There's a reason why that was said.
Yeah, and there's a reason why it was popular. I think sometimes people embrace songs without knowing what they are taking in. I think the music has that power. We are developed, as Europe. We kind of feel bad about Israel because we want to compete. Oh, there is this tiny country there who is can do so much in a small piece of territory. So I think there is this element. Then I think that's one. And the other one I would say is because we need first world problems. We don't know what to do with ourselves.
There's a big lack of meaning in the Western world.
Exactly.
And I think that because people don't have a sense of identity and meaning, like in other places, then they are bored. And that creates a lot of problems. I think that could be solved through tradition.
The perception of Irish that you guys are not as much as egomaniacs like the Mediterraneans. I think, and it's very bad seen if someone is, let's say, bragging in public. It's almost like a sin. Whereas like in countries like Portugal, Spain, and Italy, if you can afford to brag, then you have the license. I think in Ireland it's a bit different.
It's very different. Yeah, you're right. I think it could be a cultural thing as well. You're not allowed to have an attitude really in Ireland, because people will just call you out on your crap and say, just shut up or just go away. Really, we just don't tolerate BS. Really, we don't tolerate nonsense. Sure, there's egotistical people in Ireland, and sometimes we hold it inside. But most of the time, a lot of people don't get away